a second go.
A good conversation can shift the direction of change forever. Would you leave it to chance? Join the authors of Design to Change and explore this series of conversations with designers and event owners. Driven by the need and conversations with event owners and event designers who use the event canvas around the world, this series explores the depths of conversations to elevate your abilities to look and act beyond the now. Episodes are hosted by Ruud Janssen, Roel Friesen, Dennis Lehrer, and Paul Rukens, with illustrious changemakers, designers, and pioneers in the field of design and beyond. To explore these conversations and additional content, visit designtochange.online. For now, let's start the conversation.
All right, welcome. It is IMEX Frankfurt time, IMEX 2026, and across from me sits Sarinya Sungkatavat, all the way from Bangkok in Thailand. You flew in yesterday? Today?
Yes.
Yesterday. 2 years ago, you surprised me by being here, because initially we had met online back in 2020, when the world didn't allow us to travel and you became a certified event designer.
Exactly.
And tell us a story from there. What are some of the things that you've done since that first discovery where you discovered the canvas, and the road and the journey since?
Okay, I have been actually doing event design ever since I was way younger, back in college. Mm-hmm. And then when I was studying my master and PhD in America, I do events for like a job over there. Mm-hmm. And then came back to Thailand and also teaching in event design. Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. TCEP, Thailand Convention Exhibition Bureau, brought CED to Thailand. And then I saw as like something I never seen somewhere actually like really teach. It's even really hard to find a book of event design. However, I discovered your book before like TCEP brought CED in Thailand. Like it's actually from my colleague. And he was like, I'm pretty sure you're interested in this. Yeah. So he showed me the book. And then so I was like, I plan to buy it. But I pretty much read it for free from him first. And then CED came so yes. Yeah. And so I asked that if I could actually join. It's actually kind of full at that time. Yeah. But then I asked for let me go there because I actually teach event design. So they let me, and so that's the time we met online.
Yeah. So 6 years have gone past. In the past episode, this is our year plus 6, you could say, or year plus 2, because you appeared on the podcast 2 years ago in 2024. Right. And you surprised me by showing up here in Hall 9 in Frankfurt at IMEX. By the way, the noise you're hearing in the background is because there's a buzz going on here in IMEX here in Frankfurt. And one of the key things this year is design matters, right? Mm-hmm. That's the theme of this year's IMEX. When you walked in this morning versus how you walked in 2 years ago, what's the delta?
Well, it's different focus, I think, like how they're looking at that. Yeah. That time we still talk about impact, but now I think it's engraved into our DNA already. Yeah. So how we could make those impact matters or actually happen, it's through design, which is a really important tool. It's a strategic tool, right? Yeah. Whether or not we achieve our objectives that we have to create those impact. So it's through design.
I like that a lot. And what you mentioned is that you having been interested in this for a long time. Back when you were doing your studies at Kansas State, and then now you are teaching your students in the EDC-YP program. You've seen 6 cohorts of students go through your Event Design Certificate Young Professionals program. What do you see as a professor teaching this at Mahidol University? What happens to the students when they go through this process, and how do they come out the other end?
Okay. Well, at the beginning, when teaching event design, like we focusing on like how we could achieve the objectives, right? So before like the CED, I actually still teaching event and experience design, but I use different tools, and then like having them starting to think about the objectives and the planned activities and also the outcome. Once like CED came along, and then I applied the EDC-YP program, we have a platform where students can understand each other, understanding better because it was wrote out, right? It was written out, and then like so when sharing the ideas, they could see like how they are aligned better. Now we looking forward to like more things, because at the beginning like I get students to do maybe 2 stakeholders or 3 stakeholders. Now we try to engage like the one key stakeholder in it, which is staff, because over the years that I also host and design like an event which was Ascent Music Festival. It's the first inclusive music festival in Thailand, and then we really organize it. And the key stakeholder is Mahidol University, and Mahidol University International College, Mahidol University, the Music College, and also like the other college as well involving. And so we see like, I didn't thought about like the staff well-being that much, but I thought of like, this event will be the learning process for them. But then at the end, what happened was several of the students and staff like walked to me after the event, and they thanked me for letting them helping to staff in this event because it opened their eyes. And still several years later, well, actually, it happened in 2024 after we met. And I told you that I designed that event using this, right? Event design canvas. And it really happened in 2024. Still this today, like before I came here, some student was just still asking about like if I'm going to do it again because they want to do it. And good news, we kind of in the process of maybe getting like the certain amount of like budget that we would host event in one island in Thailand.
Wow!
So I'll let you know about that. So now like what
Scoop
I'm
on the podcast.
So I try to like do something about that in the canvas where we involve like the staff for this type of event. The event that create like social impact. The event that create like some significant impact to society, environment. I want to see that change. Now, like I see in my IMEX yesterday, there's a session that was talking about inner development goals, and I think that is something that we're looking for to develop the inner, like about doing something good. So I think I saw that change in students. That they think that event could be something that could transformation their thoughts, their belief, and their attitude. And so they were happy when they're like, doing this kind of thing.
And so the experience of, the emotion that drives that need, right? Like you said, there's a belief maybe that the students have, and when they associate something that maybe they couldn't identify yet within an event that they experience, and all of a sudden they discover that the need is met without having identified maybe the need before, right? So it's an interesting kind of combo. When you teach these cohorts, and I think it's a luxury for them to be able to have an inspiring teacher like you. You're always like looking at the perimeter and you're looking at the outer edges of developments and you're studying it in real life so that you can bring the best back to them. That's really inspiring. And one of the things I would encourage there as well is something that here at Design Matters we've now introduced in Hall 9. is that we're introducing something called the event culture analysis tool as something people can sample to articulate much better what you just mentioned, because it doesn't come naturally to people to codify the behaviors or the actual culture of an event, right? If you say, oh, what's the culture of the Ascent Music Festival that you organize in 2024, and how will it be different in the 2026 edition or beyond? Finding the words to describe culture is difficult. And cultural artifacts are tokens, are elements of behavior, right, of a culture. And so by developing this event culture analysis tool, we're inspiring and helping people to articulate the actual event culture analysis of a past edition of an event, and also set the cultural direction for the future. And then use something called augmented event design, which is taglined evidence-based event design at the speed of need, right? Which is really, at the end of the day, you as an academic must appreciate that the evidence base in events is very often very thin, right? That, finding the data and working with the data is not the easiest thing. And if impact is a given, like you mentioned, and design is what's now on the agenda, how can you design without evidence base, right? Like, how do you document whether behavior has changed or hasn't changed over time if you don't have a way of measuring it? And so, hence our need and our drive to use the data from our 16,000 events that have been designed and analyzed, and really build an engine that's able to analyze conversations between event owners, event designers like yourself, mentors on the event design collective team, and use the friction in those conversations to power the event design engine, which, going through the systematic process of event design, now is able to scaffold the thinking in such a way that the deltas, the behaviors, the design guidelines, all of the things, the ideas that come out, the stakeholder alignment, and all the detailed metrics, if you will, or decision-making points can be much better used, because the human brain can only hold so many of these in their brain at once, let alone a group of people who might have different interpretations, right? So there's now an anonymized engine that can keep track of this and actually define, after you've gone through the design process, loop back every single time as a perennial service, but also this ability to track whether, as an event progresses towards its design, to stress test it and check the drift off the design pathway that you've selected. So I think putting the data to work, but also having the conversations become more, the inner conversation being able to be quantified and scoped as an evidence-based element in your event design, I think is going to deliver a lot of value as we build more events, with inspiring people like yourself and your students in all sorts of different parts of the world. Like, imagine the richness of how you could apply that learning towards building better future-proofed events, right? When you hear this as a concept, because obviously this is something new that we've been working on since Q4 2025, we've ran the first 2025 pilot projects now. What does that trigger in your brain when I talk about these things?
About the augmented event design and the culture one?
Yeah.
Well, I believe every single event have their own culture.
Yeah.
And then each one of us hold maybe different culture.
Yeah.
And I think it's really interesting, and I think it's needed to be studied and analyzed.
Yeah.
Because, well, for example, my event, Ascent Music Festival, it's an inclusive music festival, right? And simply, it's not about like, the culture is not black and white, like it's not skin color.
No.
It's about way of living.
Yeah.
And how would you understand the wheelchair? Like the people with like blind or the deaf. I did not. Now I do have a little bit of understanding of like what it's like, or how do they enjoy music.
Yeah.
I did study and analyze before I designed the event, but then like this, you're looking at like the whole event as a whole, which is very interesting, because then it could help to to frame like the ideas and more things.
Yeah.
And about augmented like event design, about the data and everything, obviously it's something we needed. We need to, it's data driven decision world now,
Yeah.
right? So, and I teach revenue management. Other than event and experience
So it's
design.
hard-coded, right?
Yeah, like other than like designing great event, I also still want money. So
Exactly. Yeah. Yeah. The
So
economics
in-
are part of the whole set of
Exactly.
metrics and the culture as well, right? So there's a number of indicators we've created to create the ability to study longitudinally the events over time, but also to create a benchmark across various events. And some of these metrics are things like the risk and courage index, right, which is a score out of 5. There's an inclusion index, which I think for your event is also something that's very interesting to look at. And what does that look like? There are things where the commercial gravity and balance, versus the financials is also an important thing in terms of programming and how things work. And we'll maybe a good idea would be for this one, right, is that we actually create the culture analysis of the event from 2 years ago together, and we'll add it to the podcast so people can maybe see that, if you're willing to share that maybe as a learning moment.
of course.
And then, not only do your students benefit from it, but our learners and our listeners can actually see what this looks like if you would take that cultural print or analysis of that specific event. And then as you develop future ones and you think about the history of this event, you can study it longitudinally as an evidence-based piece of document, besides, the final report and maybe your financial report that your accountants want to validate, and, maybe the NPS scores or satisfaction surveys and anecdotal evidence that might be available in abundance, right? But now the ability to capture that and put it to good use as a designer sounds like an inspiring thing. Would you say?
Yes, exactly.
Yes, and I'm sure the academic heart here is like, yes, finally some evidence-based stuff we can use, right?
Well, we actually like do that naturally as
Okay.
a event designer, right?
Yeah.
Even though like we don't have like the specific tool. However, now like everybody can see the proof of like how do we design it this way. So I think that's better. I'm also the licensed architect. So when we design something, we need to get data.
Yeah.
And also like for event, we also need data. I think we did that naturally already, but then the academic world, they just want the solid number.
Yes.
Or the things that they can see that, that's from that.
Yes.
So I think that this would help like everybody to be more on the same page and then understand like the process clearly, how we lead like the, let's say, what we did from data to the end like result.
Exactly. Yeah. And that architecture background that you clearly articulate, where, in architecture it's something, over the past years we've talked about, why does event design fail, or why do events fail, right?
Right.
So architecture and constructors share that information with each other to prevent future failure, right? Events don't necessarily have that same how would I say, discipline, if I will, or structure, or maybe not the same égards for what happens if something doesn't go well in events, which also happens, but sometimes it's not acknowledged or not documented properly. And I think learning from those mistakes is equally important as celebrating all the stuff that goes really well, right? So I think those two truths can be present at the same time.
Right.
Hopefully. Let me ask you this last question, which is a question we always repeat, in our different podcasts, which is, what's currently on your horizon of change? Looking at the next horizon of change, what's currently on that for you?
I believe that's something that I kind of mentioned it, that I want to. What I'm doing now when I design event in my in the narrative at the very beginning before we even starting to design. I'll put like you, me, it's meaning like the host. The you part is the client or the host organization. And then the three more like things, which is like the obviously economic part, the social part, and also the environment part. The part where social, that's what I'm trying to work on now, which is the changing in people. So other than thinking about event as a strategic tool to achieve an objectives, it's a strategic tool to transform, like how people think and believe. So once you have that as your inner, and you have like the event to transform you, then that's when like change is really occur, like naturally and sustainably. Because if you're looking at like the three things without like looking back to this one specifically, it was just like, okay, to set the goal as we're gonna use less plastic. We're not gonna use less plastic, but when you can, you will do it anyway.
Yes.
So, or doing something about society, then it's never be legacy. It's just some noise, right?
Yes.
It's just like temporarily. When you do it, like when you go helping a community or whatsoever, and then that community or like your staff will just like do it once, because event is one off. But we're looking at event as like the tools that would create like legacy, let's say.
Yeah.
So that would really have a long-term legacy if like people still keep doing it naturally.
Yeah.
So that's come from inner. So one of my thing that I do in like articulate change is to try to transform like the way of thinking and the belief in like our organizer, our staff, as well as our attendees.
Yeah. And I think that's a really powerful change, because when something changes from within, that's really what legacy is, right? It's the change in somebody. It's not the change you leave behind in the context of where somebody lives or exists.
Yeah, and to add up, I did it already like for the past couple years, and you know, something is changed.
Yeah.
Like in my teaching experience, I built very good let's say relation with my students.
Yeah.
But within these 2 years, it's getting way better. Like because
so something changed in you too.
Yeah, because it's connecting like us better.
Yeah.
One thing that AI cannot do for us, AI could do or help with the process, right?
Yeah.
But we, as a human, we have soul.
Yeah.
So one of the things that humans have in nature is we connect.
Yeah.
And when we connect, something happens.
Yeah.
So that's what I see the change.
Yeah.
And event is about human. It's about people.
Totally. Yeah.
So I think this is something that I think the event design that I do would heading towards. Yeah.
Yeah. I think that's a very noble way of expressing something that, you know, I think your students will probably appreciate as they progress in their careers and in their lives. And there's always teachers and mentors that you remember, I think, over time. And what you're describing is probably that unique quality of, you know, leaving something in somebody, right? That legacy of instilling something in somebody without forcing anything, but just it's a discovery process almost. And you described it very eloquently, and I'm super excited to hear that also you feel that your teaching experience is changing as a result of it, or by doing that more systematically or more consciously or more innately. And that's a powerful thing. So, and I think one of the reasons we call it augmented event design was inspired technically also by an experience that I had in Asia and back in February last year, and this year again, where augmented humanity. If you go to an event and the environment in which you are makes you a better person, or you perform better, or you connect better, or you learn better, then you are grateful for that experience. And I think that's what you're creating in your learning environments, creating, augmented awareness of how to be a better human, or how the humanity part of that is a result of the context you've created with the learning and the process. The process is cold, like you said, it doesn't have a soul, right?
Right.
The process is necessary to get from A to B to C to all the way to Z and be able to do it systematically. But the human layer on top of it, the conversations, the friction, the experiences, what happens in a person, you need to extract that through conversations.
Oh, and I want to add this.
Yeah.
Something that changed in my class,
Yeah.
because it's a teaching techniques that I do when we do empathy map.
Okay. Yeah.
Like I do acting
Okay.
for event design.
Wow.
So I'm going to host another workshop, which I plan to do it sometime this year,
Yeah.
which is an acting for event. And obviously it's involved the design part in it. So acting for design event or
Yeah.
experience. And it's have something to do with your culture analysis stuff. So I would study about it more and then see if it can integrate something that you do. And maybe you can invite me back for the podcast.
Absolutely. We need to explore this further. So as a result of this podcast, not only do we have more insights and new knowledge and something changed inside, and I see the spark when you talk about this. I want to know more about it. If you want to connect to Sarinya, we're going to include your details in the show notes. As promised, we're going to do the event culture analysis on this event that we talked about from 2 years ago. I know you bring your students to different parts of the world. Last time we spoke on the EDC Young Professionals Faculty Summit, you were in Jakarta with your team of students who were about to present the next day.
Yes.
And it was late in the evening. You just arrived in Jakarta and they were nervous about the next day. And you still invited them into the faculty forum that we do once every quarter. And you got them to tell about the story of what they were going to present the next day, which is this Ascent Music Festival that you were speaking about, right?
No, actually
that
different one. The one that they presented was called Power Expo.
Oh, yeah.
So I love to do something about either energy, people, emotion, or whatsoever.
Yeah.
So the last time that we won the second runner-up in Africa was called Love Fair.
Okay.
It's the tagline is where love happened. So we also they also taking my event and experience design course.
That's so cool.
Yeah.
Anyway, lots to research, lots to learn from Sarinya, and Sarinya is going to share with us, what this next dot on the horizon of change is for you in an upcoming episode of the podcast. Thank you for being an inspiring contributor to the community of certified event designers, for teaching this to 6 cohorts of your students, for coming to visit with us and hanging out with our listeners for 20 minutes live here at IMEX in Hall 9 on Tuesday, the 19th of May, 2026 today. That's for posterity, so if people in the future listen to this and think, when was that conversation? Well, it was on the 19th of May, 2026. Thank you so much for being on the show.
Thank you for having me.
And Design Matters, live from IMEX here in Frankfurt, Germany. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
You've been hanging out backstage on Design to Change Designer Conversations. Thank you for tuning in, and don't forget to subscribe and share conversations online using hashtag Design to Change and hashtag Event Canvas. Want more thought-provoking content like this? Visit designtochange.online to purchase your copy of Design to Change, elevating your abilities to look and act beyond the now. Don't forget, it's more than just a book. Experience a hard copy, audio format, video format, and even augmented reality. Experience it in your style and format. Tune into our next episodes and hear from more designers and change makers. Until then, we look forward to our next conversation.